Alright, so I've talked before how the Lost Agent arc of Bleach has been something of a reset, or at least kind of the beginning of a very different era for the series. It's been a bit more of a psychological thriller with slowly built up tension and conflicts, while introducing so many new elements to the lore, and at its core, this arc has been much more low-key and smaller stakes than the previous arc or two. More of a slow burn personal battle, but that's honestly been a strength, and I think it's what made what I just read hit so much harder. Because how did this happen? How did something that was a quieter, slower paced arc in comparison get so hype and become so profoundly satisfying? How did it go from me feeling horrible for all of the personal trauma that Ichigo has been through to me being like so happy and excited and thinking that this is everything I didn't know I needed? It went from like a slow burn mystery to now it's about to be like an all-out war, and it feels so right. So let's get into it, because there's a lot that made me cheer after Ichigo has been mentally and emotionally torn apart, and finally something good happened for him, and it was worth the wait and even maybe all of those psychological scars. Okay, let's talk about it. We ended the last batch of chapters with Rukia returning, and she stabbed Ichigo with that weird sword, turning him back into a Soul Reaper. So first off, let's talk about his new look, because he doesn't look quite the same as he used to when he was a Soul Reaper. He's got a collar now, and he's got these X's on him on his chest and his wrist, and I can't tell, are they like tattoos or are they parts of his clothing like bracelets? I don't know, it's hard to tell. Whatever they are, they look cool, and I assume it's somehow tied to him having a Fullbring now too, right? Like, I know Ginjo took his Fullbring, but from what it sounded like later, it seems like he maybe only took a portion of it actually. So I guess this form is what we discussed in a previous video, where Ichigo's Soul Reaper powers would stack on top of his activated Fullbring. Maybe? Right? Yeah? Or maybe this has to do with how it was a collection of Soul Reapers that gave him this power and nothing to do with his Fullbring. I don't know. I think it's the Fullbring thing, but of course we have to talk about his Zanpakuto's change, because this thing looks sleek. It's less of a giant kitchen knife now and has this really cool shape. I'm not sure what this means for Zangetsu though. Whether or not he'll also be a bit different to reflect this, or maybe there'll be a new aspect within the inner world of Ichigo's mind. I don't know, but I'm excited to see what this means, since Ichigo previously kind of balanced himself out before. So maybe this will bring some new conflict and turmoil into his, inner self. Really, I'm just so happy for him. Like, so happy for Ichigo. And I loved Rukia and Ichigo slipping back into their old dynamics immediately. Their relationship has always been a highlight, and one of the ones that's been given the most page and screen time overall. It's been weird not having her around this arc, because she's been such an important part of the series, but it's just like it used to be. Rukia isn't afraid to be harsh, but also finds the exact right ways of getting through to him. It's just seriously wonderful to have her back, and I just love how well they know each other, but particularly how Rukia kind of brushes off what Ichigo's been dealing with. Okay, not so much brush off, I think that's the wrong phrase, but kind of puts it into perspective in a way that he wasn't looking at it before, because he was so lost in all of the emotions and the paranoia and the shock. But she puts it into perspective, reminding him of what he's already gone through and inspiring him to not give in to despair. And it seems to work. Like, Rukia is exactly the right person to show up now. The one that would be able to get through to Ichigo and pull him out of his anguish. I loved that so much, but it wasn't just Rukia that helped him rise back up. Not at all. I talked a bit about this last video, but it was so effective for Kubo to put Ichigo into an absolutely hopeless situation where there seemed to be no chance of victory, but he stood back up anyway in the face of that. I love when that kind of thing happens, when a hero will be on their last legs but still stand up against impossible odds in their darkest hours. It shows their true heroism, and it shows why reinforcements might come to help them. And sure enough, reinforcements arrived. The hype that moved through me as some of our old Soul Reaper buddies showed up in the sky was incredible. And since it's been over a year in the story, some of them are rocking some slightly different looks, but everyone is looking clean. Byakuya is looking a little more regal in a way. Maybe it's just that collar, but it just feels more in line with his family's nobility. He's got a different headpiece too. It's more of like, I don't know, kind of, he looks more like a prince to me, and maybe it means he's taken up more of a leadership position within his clan and within Soul Society. I don't know. It looks very fitting for him. I think even more so than his previous outfit. And Captain Hitsugaya over there woke up one day and said, I'm the cold guy. I need to start wearing a scarf. And he's all around looking just slightly more mature. Maybe it's the hair, I don't know, but I really like the design. It makes him stand out a bit more. He looked a little bit kind of generic before, I'd say, in the early part of Bleach, but now I think he looks, I don't know. I like a good scarf sometimes. It's a cool look. Renji let his hair get longer and has got a black bandana now, where he used to rock the visor thing and then the white headband. This looks a bit more put together. It's a small thing, but he just looks a little more mature. I can dig it. It doesn't look like he's a captain though, and that's a little disappointing. At least so far, just nothing. He's not wearing a captain's robe or anything, but he looks good. He looks good. I'm excited to see him again. But my guy, Kenny, look at that hair, majestic, and he looks a little more wild, like he has a lion mane. The other hairdo was iconic, of course, and made for a great silhouette. Plus, those bells that used to be on the tips of his hair. Iconic. But this feels more savage somehow. It suits him more. Also, his eye patch looks like it's just nailed to his socket now. Maybe he wants to make it harder for him to unleash his full power. I don't know, but he looks great. I'm loving this for him. And Ikkaku looks like Ikkaku. No change to speak of, especially his hairstyle. I'm just joshing. I love the guy. He's one of my favorite characters, and I'm actually really glad he's here for this instead of another captain or something. It's kind of an interesting pick that he got brought along for this, but he is tough, you know? I'm happy to see him. I was surprised to see him. This is hype. This is so hype. A part of me is oh man, this arc could have been the moment where, Ichigo's friends all break through Tsukishima's control and they all learn about their Fullbring abilities, suddenly Tatsuki's over here throwing fireballs or something. But you know what? This is fitting. Because as fitting as that would have been of a focus on the Earth heroes and on the living world and on Ichigo's normal life, in another world that could have been cool with different setup and stuff. But the way this goes, with how this is integrated, it being a group of Soul Reapers showing up after we haven't seen them for so long, is so good. This is so good. And the best part about their arrival isn't even them showing up to help fight. It's the revelation that every single one of these characters, plus just about every other character we met in Soul Society, all donated some of their spiritual power in the collective effort to help return Ichigo's power and make him a Soul Reaper again. And I was wondering last time what this strange sword was that Rukia stabbed Ichigo with. It was obviously to give him his powers back and to narratively call back to the first time he became a Soul Reaper. But it's so much more than that. It wasn't just Rukia's power in that sword. It was the pooled energy of the people that Ichigo has helped and who wanted to return the favor. It's just a beautiful reminder that while this arc intentionally focused on the living world and Ichigo readjusting to a more human life, that part of him, the part that was a Soul Reaper, even for that brief amount of time that he was, it still had a massive impact on a universal scale, and its effects were still spreading even as Ichigo was living a normal life again, going to school and playing soccer and working a job. The things he did as a Soul Reaper impacted people in another dimension and beyond, he made such a difference. And it's amazing to really see that. And to see the impact that everything we've read has had on this universe. Losing his powers didn't erase everything he'd done as a Soul Reaper, and the continued impact it had on the people in that part of his life. Soul Reapers, these otherworldly spiritual entities, remembered the guy that saved their world, that proved himself time and time again. Even the people that were in conflict with Ichigo recognized the incredible things that he managed to do, and he earned their respect, and he earned them wanting to help him. And what really got me was the transfer itself. We know all about how forbidden it is for a Soul Reaper to give a mortal their power, because of everything that happened after Rukia did that in Chapter 1. They nearly executed her for that crime, but now the Soul Society is willingly committing the same act, fully aware that they're breaking a law. It's especially great to see Yamamoto give that order to help Ichigo after he's always been so resolute and so stubborn about following the laws to the letter. It's just great character development and world building, and wonderful to see how many lives Ichigo has touched and how many minds he's changed. Cutting Ichigo off from the Soul Reapers and also cutting us off as well helped lay the groundwork for why this moment worked so well and why it was so beautiful. Ichigo was isolated, segregated from a world he was only beginning to be a part of. He had power to cause such immense change and to save so many lives, including his loved ones, and he sacrificed it all and seemingly put down his sword for good to protect the universe. And once he did that, it was all gone. For a while, he lived a perfectly normal life without ghosts, without Soul Reapers, without any of it. That world was completely closed off to him, it seemed, where he even wondered about how Rukia never visited him. From his perspective, he'd been forgotten, and he had to try his best to move on too. And it's just so touching that he wasn't ever forgotten. Not ever. It only felt that way to him because he couldn't see what was happening over there. And the readers, we weren't allowed to see it either. It's really such a nice, kind of happy development. Such a pick-me-up after how depressing the last bunch of chapters were. It's just awesome to have Ichigo really back, you know? Like, truly back. As much as I liked the skeletal Fullbring going on, and even when he developed the other Fullbring halfway point where he was like, had the burning robes, that was all cool, but this feels right. This is Ichigo Kurosaki. And what I love is that Kubo wasted no time in giving Ichigo a badass moment, or two, or three, now that he's a Soul Reaper again. The whole thing where he attacks Ginjo, and Ginjo was like, is that it? That's your Getsuga Tensho? Only for Ichigo to be like, that wasn't the Getsuga Tensho. So satisfying, so good, so earned. God, that felt good. And after seeing Ichigo get broken down so much, it's great to see him put his enemies on the back foot finally, and be able to have these big heroic moments again. It's been a while, because he's either not been at his best, or he's been fighting out of fear and anger, but now it feels like our old Ichigo again. This is him at his best, and at his most comfortable with himself. And I can't imagine what this feels like for him. After everything he got put through, it must feel euphoric to be a Soul Reaper again, to be able to protect people with that kind of power that he's familiar with. But Ginjo doesn't go down easily because he now, as we know, absorbed Ichigo's Fullbring last time. He's tougher than he was, and he even says, you know, if I hadn't taken your Fullbring, you probably would have killed me right then. And he transforms, he activates the Fullbring. And his design now that he has that Fullbring is so cool. I love it for the same reasons that I loved Ichigo's. I love a skeletal aesthetic, which this carries over to help emphasize that it came from that same power that Ichigo was wearing. But I think it looks better on Ginjo, to be honest. Maybe it just suits him more, but he looks so badass. Like, this is a great costume. I would cosplay that. But that's not all that Ginjo had to offer here. No, we finally get a better idea of his backstory, as one of the earliest mysteries of this arc is finally given a definitive answer. One of the first times we saw Ginjo, we saw him pull out a Soul Reaper pass. And I was like, that's weird. Maybe he was a Soul Reaper, maybe it belonged to someone else, maybe it was Ishin's. And for a while, he made us believe it belonged to a dead Soul Reaper, which I fully accepted. But now we know that that was all nonsense. It really is Ginjo's Soul Reaper badge, because he was the substitute Soul Reaper before Ichigo. But not only that, he was the first ever substitute Soul Reaper. So yeah, that's crazy. But I love that this gives Ichigo and Ginjo an even closer connection. There's kind of been something of a brotherly kindred spirits thing about them throughout the arc, with both of them being these tough, stubborn guys that wanted to protect the ones close to them. But now that that has turned out to kind of have been not exactly completely the case, I like that there's still things tying them even closer together. We don't know the details of what Ginjo went through as a substitute or why he stopped being one. I assume he did something horrible and got kicked out, or maybe he was abandoned by the Soul Society. They say he relinquished the power and then vanished, but I'm trying not to take one person's story at face value anymore, because every time I do that, I look stupid. Okay, Kubo, I'm just gonna take what one of those characters said was the backstory. I'm gonna put it aside. I'm gonna go maybe, but maybe not. I would love to see a lengthy flashback, and maybe we will. Maybe one of my initial theories was right and Ginjo knew Ishin back then as a Soul Reaper or something. I don't know, but this opens up a whole lot of interesting possibilities. Getting a peek back into Orihime's mindset as she's under Tsukishima's influence was devastating, as her mind tries to make sense of everything, and how what we know her reality is suddenly colliding with the one that she's experienced after Tsukishima's tampered with her past. She's been forced to remember that she's known Tsukishima her whole life and cared about him for that long, and her experience with him, that he made happen, puts him above Ichigo in the importance of her mind. But it's like her heart or her soul still remembers how she feels about Ichigo, even if it's at conflict with her new actual history. That's the power of love, I guess. You can change someone's whole past, and they're still gonna feel the same love they feel towards the person they're in love with, because love, damn it. And she's happy to see her Soul Reaper friends, but she thinks they're there to help stop Ichigo, only for her and Chad to realize they're there to stop Ginjo. It's not like instantly waking them up to the truth, but it's making them pause to question things, at least until Cousin Shu shows up. I've been really focused on Ginjo recently after the plot twist, but our other big villain is still around, and Tsukishima is still creepy and is honestly getting even worse. This panel of him lurking behind them is wonderfully creepy, and their reactions just make it worse. I'm telling you, their souls know the truth, even if their minds don't. They're scared of him, whether it's they're scared to let him down because they just are such good friends with him, or they're scared because they're starting to doubt his role in their lives, and he really ingrained himself in their lives. Tsukishima replaces their closest loved ones, like Orihime's brother who raised her, or Chad's grandfather and the importance he held in his life. It's really messed up how he's completely corrupted their lives with his own will and his own motivations. The mental, emotional, and seemingly physical strain that this is putting on them as he's actively trying to change their past even more is really upsetting, and portrayed in such an awful way, with them trembling and scared and trying to make sense of what's happening with their lives. Prior to this, we haven't really gotten a chance to see what it's like when Tsukishima's altering what they know, and now that we do, it looks like absolute torture, and it's horrifying to think that this is what he was doing to Karin and Yuzu and all of Ichigo's friends who can't defend themselves. They all went through this, and that's really, really awful. But the most disturbing thing to me is Ginjo warning Tsukishima not to push them so far, because he's literally destroyed people's minds by warping their past too much. It's really scary to think that he's done that before, that he's broken people so badly. But in the midst of all this happy pump up hype going on for me, this is a moment that reminds us just how depraved these villains are. And it isn't just Tsukishima and Ginjo. Execution arrives, having previously been reawakened to their actual lives, which put a moment earlier into better perspective when I was thinking about it. Yukio had said that Ginjo was going to remember. You know, he said, "You don't worry, you'll remember." Which was another hint of what was actually going on that I just didn't think enough about. Given what we now know about Ginjo, seeing that Execution aren't the friendly team that they originally made out to be is kind of hard to stomach. These people helped Ichigo, they trained him, they got his confidence back, only to turn out to really be these like vultures waiting to take his power. It's a little sad because I really got to like a lot of these characters, but now I've got to kind of reassign them in my mind. They're the people that we need to beat. They've been part of this conspiracy from the start, just waiting for Ginjo to give them some of Ichigo's power. It's kind of hard to know how much of their personalities were even genuine since Tsukishima tweaked their lives, but he did say before that he didn't have to adjust them as much as he did to Ginjo, and we have seen a little bit of real humanity, you know? Particularly with Ruruka. A part of me hoped that at least a little bit of that was genuine, and it seems to be true, because she does say that she never wanted Ichigo's power. So Ruruka in general is being put in an interesting spot. Maybe she's a good person. And there's just something real icky about how proud the rest of them are that these are Ichigo's full-bring powers that they've taken and that they feel this kind of ownership of since they helped him to unlock it. There's just this gross entitlement with the full-bringers as they relish what they've taken, which honestly just feels like scraps that Ginjo was giving them. Like, it feels a little pathetic. Like, they're like, "You said you'd give us some of Ichigo's power," and he like gives it to them, and it's like, I don't know, it feels icky. As far as the designs themselves, now that they have Ichigo's full bring, there isn't like massive changes for any of them. For the most part, it's pretty like low-key little additions, but all share the kind of exterior armor pieces aesthetic. Yukio looks like he has some like Nintendo Power Gloves. Ruruka has rabbit ears, probably because of her connection to her plushies, I guess. Jackie's got like, I don't know, big exhaust tube on her, like a car part. And Giriko is like, well, it doesn't really matter what Giriko's change is like, but we'll get to that soon. I thought Shishigawara's place in this was also kind of interesting. He's been Tsukishima's lack, and apparently kind of not really part of Ginjo's crew, and Ginjo doesn't want him to share in their glory, so he doesn't get the upgrade. The part that struck me though was that it's because he kind of fears Shishigawara's powers and doesn't want them amplified even more. This really struck me because if Ginjo, after going through all of this and gaining this power, is scared of Shishigawara, that says a lot. And it's interesting seeing a little more of the power structure within Execution and within these Fullbringers, because maybe Ginjo just doesn't trust that Shishigawara seems more loyal to Tsukishima. And after Ichigo kind of embarrasses them, like fully, we get a look that their abilities are definitely more dangerous than ever now, as they can use them more openly and in different ways than they were restricted to before. And this leads to the two sides, the Soul Reapers and the Fullbringers, coming to a head as Yukio transports everyone to their own separate battlefields, which is really exciting. It's like I'm watching like Mortal Kombat or something. And I laughed so hard when Kenny tried switching at the last second because he would rather fight Tsukishima than Giriko. He's like, "Wait, Byakuya, let's swap. As excited as I am for Tsukishima versus Byakuya, because they strangely got kind of similar vibes, right? Or am I just crazy? They got a similar aesthetic. As excited as I am for that, I would have loved to have seen how Kenny would have had to try to deal with Tsukishima, because like Kenny is not the kind of guy that would be trying to avoid Tsukishima's blade, you know? Like, it could be a fun callback to when we first met Kenpachi and how Ichigo's blade couldn't pierce him. Like, something like that would have been fun if Tsukishima tried to stab him and literally couldn't, rendering his power kind of useless. That would have been good. But alas, Kenpachi is against Führer King Bradley's doppelganger. I was all geared up for these fights, but also thinking like, yeah, I'll probably have to read those and cover them in the next chunk of chapters. But then, one of those fights didn't even give me the chance to do that, because before the chapter ended, the fight was already done. Kiriko using his powers to like Hulk himself out was pretty wild. We saw this kind of have that effect on Mr. Pork a while ago, but seeing it happen here was like, oh man, yeah, Kenny might actually have some competition in like sheer raw power. And maybe these timer powers are gonna be difficult for him to deal with. Maybe he won't be able to hack and slash his way through. And then it was over. The fight was done. Kenny instantly beat Kiriko, because of course he did. He is Kenpachi Zaraki, and this is exactly how he should have handled Yami. This is my guy. This is my guy. This is what he does. It was amazing. And I get it. I'm a little torn, but the part of me that's hype about this and hype for seeing Kenny be Kenny is outweighing any conflicted feelings. Because conceptually, Kiriko's powers over time were some of the more intriguing and potentially scary within execution. And for a second I thought maybe there would be some interesting and unexpected parallels between these two characters to dig into. Hell, they both got eye patches, so that's something. But nope, so good. As much as I really would have loved to see more of Kiriko's powers, I love that the like tidy butler guy got immediately slaughtered by someone as utterly messy as Kenpachi. And there's also just the fact that Kenny doesn't waste time. He just butchers it in a matter of seconds. But really, he's not gonna bother dragging out a fight with someone he can crush so effortlessly. Was it a little bit of a letdown as far as an actual fight goes? Sure. But boy, was it absolutely fitting for Kenpachi to handle it this quickly, and also kind of fitting that the guy with timer powers gets beaten in record time. God! I can't stress this enough. Kenny, I love you, and I've missed you. Never, ever change. But yeah, besides this quick fight, it looks like we're about to get a real brawl between the Soul Reapers and the Fullbringers, and I'm curious to see if these duels end as quickly as Kenpachi's. Time will tell. These were some extremely exciting chapters, and the hype obviously was overwhelming at times. It's just great to kind of see so many of the answers fall into place, and now we can see our heroes finally overcome the people that have turned out to be our new villain group. But yeah, the sheer excitement that these chapters and episodes brought on was wonderful. And it was surprising, but the slow ramp up to this throughout this arc felt so natural and so understated that it caught me off guard when everything suddenly blew up into something crazy. But it feels earned and satisfying, and I can't wait to see what some of these Soul Reapers have learned in this 17 months and seeing how they do against these Fullbringers. Personally, I don't think most of these Fullbringers stand a chance. Shishigawara might be the dark horse here. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, this was great. I'm hyped. I'm not sad anymore. I feel good. That's good. Yeah, that'll do it. I'll see you guys all next time. As always, thank you for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe. If you want to support the channel a little bit extra, please become a member. I will be starting a Patreon in the near future. Yeah, as always, take care.